Zohran can't make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar. Democrats must recognize that Zohran Mamdani is the future of the party. Unfortunately, it's the Republican Party. Get it? And if you missed his victory speech in last week's mayoral election in New York, don't worry. You'll see it in every attack ad for the next 2 years.
Bill Maher once again cuts through the political noise with his trademark blunt, comedic realism, the kind that makes both sides squirm. In this video, we break down why his latest takedown of woke progressive fantasies and figures like Zohran Mamdani lands harder than any campaign slogan they've tried to sell.
Gen Z thinks socialism's wired and capitalism's tired and billionaires are what's for dinner. And who can blame them? If you're 30 and still sharing a bathroom with roommates, capitalism isn't working for you. People will reject any economic system where there's strange hair on the soap. It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening. Zohran can't make your wishes come true. You're thinking of Zoltar.
Zohran can't grant wishes any more than democratic socialism can. Both look appealing in glossy profiles until you realize the big dreams come with a questionable address. Politicians who sell utopia at rallies make for catchy headlines but disastrous contracts in reality. If Mamdani victory speech already doubles as an attack ad, voters likely read the fine print and walked away. The whole woke romance pitch inevitably crumbles under the harsh fluorescent light of municipal budgets, where lofty promises collide with potholes, payroll, and plain old arithmetic.
Democrats must recognize that Zohran Mamdani is the future of the party. Unfortunately, it's the Republican Party. Get it? And if you missed his victory speech in last week's mayoral election in New York, don't worry. You'll see it in every attack ad for the next 2 years. Mamdani seems like a nice guy, and I congratulate him on an extraordinary political achievement. But before the whole left side of the country catches socialism fever, let's listen to the other big winner in last Tuesday's election, Virginia Governor-elect Abigail Spanberger, who, before the 24 election, said things like, if the party didn't shift to the center, we will get torn apart. And we need to never use the word socialist or socialism ever again.
Zohran Mamdani being pitched as the party's future while handing out GOP-ready soundbites is basically Democrats exposing their own weaknesses and then acting shocked when the opposition exploits them. When your victory speech reads like a late-night manifesto, you're handing Republicans the next 2 years of attack ads on a silver platter. This kind of performative radicalism doesn't energize swing districts, it hands them to the other side. Maher's point remains, moderates win in Trump districts because they appeal to persuadable voters, not just the base. And that's the only strategy that actually wins elections.
At least the party has a clear choice here, very clear. One wing is saying don't ever use the word socialist again, and one is saying,
I am a democratic socialist.
Clear, huh? So how do we decide who's right? Well, it turns out we don't really have to flip a coin. We have the evidence. In 2024, 13 Democrats won in districts Trump also won, all moderates. This isn't rocket science. All the left-leaning think tanks have done autopsies on 2024, and they all came up with the same message: move to the center.
Maher's point is simple. Those 13 Democrats didn't win Trump districts through magic, they won through moderation, not ideological theater. Their victories came from practical centrism, not purity tests or performative wokeness. No matter how loudly the fringe complains, until candidates address real frustrations instead of lecturing from theory while voters deal with everyday annoyances, the center will keep walking away.
If you're 30 and still sharing a bathroom with roommates, capitalism isn't working for you. People will reject any economic system where there's strange hair on the soap.
Capitalism may have its flaws, but it usually delivers the private bathrooms and basic dignity people actually care about. Unlike ideologies that still leave a mystery hair on your Dove bar, when daily life becomes uncomfortable, voters don't turn to abstractions. They choose systems that reliably provide clean towels, personal space, and predictable results, which is exactly why Poland market reforms succeeded while Venezuela's 21st century socialism collapsed. If any system wants to keep voters loyal, it should start by making sure no one has to share shampoo with a roommate.
In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chávez's socialism for the 21st century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century or any century, a f***ing mess.
Poland and Venezuela make the contrast clear. Strong institutions, open markets, and the rule of law create stability, while romanticized state control eventually hollows everything out. 21st century socialism isn't a shortcut to prosperity at a glossy pitch that falls apart the moment real-world logistics show up, much like an overpolished dating profile. And when single-payer experiments collapse long before they can scale to 340 million people, voters don't remember the ideals. They remember the wait times, the rationing, and why you always read the fine print before swiping right.
Democratic socialism is like a dating profile. Things look great until you meet up in the real world. For example, Bernie Sanders, his big thing was always bringing single-payer health care to our country of 340 million. But when liberal, tie-dyed Vermont tried to do it for a population of 626,000, it collapsed like that poor in the Oval Office last week.
Democratic socialism looks great in the glossy profile pictures, sweeping promises, and romantic vibes until you arrive and realize the apartment has no heat. That's exactly what happened when Vermont's single-payer experiment ran headfirst into basic math. Bernie's national version may sound noble, but pretending the utilities bill doesn't exist is just policy catfishing, no matter how earnest the sales pitch. While Bernie, AOC, and Mamdani proudly wear the Democratic Socialist label, voters tend to reward the practical, centrist approach, one grounded in funding plans, footnotes, and ideas that can survive a collision with reality.
Bernie, AOC, Mamdani are not Democrats. They'll be the first to tell you that. They're Democratic Socialists, and that's a very different thing, and I don't think people know that yet. I don't think people realize we already have a lot of socialism.
Bernie, AOC, and Zohran Mamdani can lean into the Democratic Socialist label all they want, but swing voters already deal with plenty of government in their daily lives and they still choose stability over ideological rebranding. Pitch a revolution instead of a reasonable adjustment, and you're forcing people to take an identity test they never asked for, especially when they're exhausted by both MAGA chaos and left-wing, government-run theatrics. Call yourself whatever you like, but elections are still won by sounding practical, not performative.
You think you're going to win an election on that? This just seems like more extremism at a time when Americans are begging both parties, please, could just one of you act normal? It's either defund the police or military in the streets. Either MAGA's crypto crony capitalism or city-run grocery stores. No, I don't want that. I want a Democrat who reassures me if you like your Whole Foods, you can keep your Whole Foods.
Radical swings at either extreme make for good punchlines, but terrible governance. Telling suburban voters their only choices are armed patrols or city-run grocery stores is a surefire way to lose them. Most people want competence and normalcy, not a branded revolution or a mega rerun. When Mamdani and the hard left offer lifestyle statements instead of workable policy, moderates tune out. If your message can't reassure voters that they'll keep their Whole Foods, their paycheck, and their basic stability, you've already lost the room. Winning isn't about making headlines, it's about holding the room.
You know, Chuck Schumer ain't perfect, but at least he doesn't crumple into a heap when confronted with Chanel No. 5.
Bill Maher critique resonates because it cuts through the fantasy and exposes how figures like Zohran Mamdani sell ideological theater instead of the centrist competence that actually wins Trump districts. Time and again, it's moderates OT rooftop revolutionaries who deliver results, because voters reward stability over purity tests. From economic realities to cautionary examples like Venezuela, the pattern is consistent. Democratic socialist promises crumble when they collide with budgets, institutions, or basic expectations like safety and a functioning grocery store. The woke progressive wing may craft compelling rhetoric, but real voters want steady hands, not utopian catfishing.